to Jessica didn't answer.
Yeah, so that worked.
See, it is working.
Okay. Bueno,
I'm going to.
no sé si quiera, si Jessica quiera que me conecte por el Facebook Live o por el, because I don't need to be out there.
This live is streaming already.
Sí, algo.
I'm going to record.
Gustavo, se conecte. In 5 minutes, llámale.
Sí.
Right.
Yes. Hola. Tú le mandaste. Hello, Gustavo. ¿Cómo estás? ¿Estás en... Hey, how are you doing, Mirayo? Thanks for coming to the...
Pretty good. How are you?
Good. Happy New Year. Long time no see you.
I know. Happy New Year to you.
Alexis, I thought I had my microphone on. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. Don't worry.
I was saying hi, and meanwhile, I realized that it was.
How's everything with you, Gustavo?
Busy.
I know this is the season.
Lots of coffee. Yeah, I mean, just because we're in the business segment, it's just a lot more related to strategic planning behind the scenes to make sure that everything goes smooth for the filing season. Yeah, but it's good.
I know is the time. Is the time of the year.
That is true. So I have we'll wait for others to connect and whatnot, but I have a brief presentation.
Yeah, let me just participants. Now you can upload the presentation. I'm going to introduce you. I think that we have Facebook Live right now. So we are presenting on Facebook Live and also over here. So people that wants to come into here or people can go to the Facebook Live. So give us a few minutes, then we will start, like probably 2 more minutes to start, Gustavo. Do you
Perfect.
think? Yeah. Okay. Okay. Let's copy here. Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming. We are going to take today a webinar with JPG. Gustavo Suarez is the person that is going to present this webinar about tips to prepare business taxes. So happy that Gustavo is here because Gustavo is going to explain a little bit things like as us as a business owner, we have to get ready just to do our taxes in this season. That is going to be the most important thing for the business owners to have ready. Gustavo, thanks so much for come today. I know that it's a busy time for you guys. We will have today the presentation in Spanish, I mean in English first and then in Spanish. So for people that wants to go to the Spanish one, we will have it at 1 p.m. in Spanish, or you can be in both. This is going to be in English for now. So Gustavo, thanks so much for being here. And then I will let you just to go with this.
Okay, well, excellent. Thank you, Alexis, and the entire team of Baker Ripley Entrepreneur Connection. It is always a pleasure to be here with you. One thing to mention, I think it's relevant. We're not just a firm that works with small businesses, but we're also small business owners. So our attention when it comes down to filing taxes, it's here 1,000%. We also want to save money on taxes. We also want to be as efficient as possible. And I hope that today's talk will answer some of the questions. It is also very important to know that every single case is different. Even though there are some patterns within industries and lines of business, specialties, every case might vary. So feel free to reach out to us. Our website is on the presentation. Our Instagram, it's also on the presentation. If you have the specific questions regarding to your business. Okay, well, let's go ahead and get started. I hope everybody is good with coffee, and everybody had or is having an amazing lunch. So what to expect? I mean, during the tax season, one of the first things as a business owner that you need to keep an eye regarding of the tax deductions, we're going to get to that in a second, is the deadlines. We had a deadline, January 31st, subcontractors, 1099s, payroll, W-2. So it means that if you paid someone, and I will get a little bit more in depth in a second regarding 1099s, amounts over $600 on the fiscal year, and we're referring to fiscal year, tax year 2021, you must write this individual or DBA or LLC, not corporations, LLC, a 1099. Sometimes it gets a little difficult, so I'll give you some tips in a second. Today is going to be a day of a bunch of tips for you to put in your pocket. It's okay if you don't absorb all the information. We can go back and help you through the journey. Second, well, this is not by the government. January 31st is by the government. I did not set that deadline. IRS set that deadline for you. This second one is something that we created internally. By February 15, you should have your financial statements ready. Yes, you need to have books. You need to have some level of organization in your business. Otherwise, I guarantee you, that's why you will be facing some issues running the business. If you just started, there is ways to do it efficiently using softwares online or whatnot, so you don't spend a lot of money. But you must have your financial statements ready. We're referring to an income statement, a balance sheet, and it will be nice, it will be beautiful to know where your money is. And that's where we call this the statement of cash flows. Now for March 15, we have our first tax deadline, and that's for business tax returns. You can always file an extension. And when we say business tax returns, we're referring to S corps. Small corporations, okay? Corporations have another deadline, and we also have a calendar that I will be showing in just a second. And by March 15, it will be ideal that you file, and if not, then you gotta file an extension. Now, once you're done with filing your compliance for 2021 on March 15, 2022, then you must be ready to have your game plan on the table, meaning having that strategic meeting where you put all the cards on the table and you know what's going to happen in your business. So that's something relevant to mention. This is just also another roadmap and journey that we prepare for our clients to where we say, well, you know, make sure that the data processing is done for financial statements, then make sure that your tax forms match financial statements. A lot of times it happens that your financial statements do not match your tax return. So if you ever get into an audit, the auditor is going to say, what is this? Your revenue in your financial statements says A, but your tax returns says completely different. So internally, there has to be some level of check and balances to ensure that everything is done correctly. Then you file your tax return, you close that year and move on with your business life. A brief business tax checklist. Then again, we're going to do a lot of repetition. Yes, financial statements. You got to have a summary of your income and a detail of your expenses. Cost of goods sold. How much did it cost me to produce a product or a service? And then the operating expenses, meaning how much did it cost me to run that business? Ideally, we also want to have the balance sheet where we talk about the assets. What do I own? Bank accounts, properties, vehicles, equipment. And then also, what do I owe? Who do I owe? How much do I owe? Loans, credit cards, and whatnot. Now, it's important that if you have chosen a legal structure for your business, then you have also your formation documents. to make sure that by the time that you file your business tax returns, all the information is accurate with the Internal Revenue Service. We're referring to the EIN, we're referring to certificate of formation. And now that we're in this conversation, it's always nice to know that you have some level of operating agreement for the business, right? And it's good also to have assets worksheet. Well, I'm a construction company and I have several trucks. And guess what? My accountant, which a lot of times it might not be an accountant, it might be a tax professional, and they might not specialize on business tax returns. They never ask me about this. Well, I don't blame them, I don't blame you, but it's that conversation to where you spend only 30 minutes, an hour, a year. You just provide some data, they file some tax return, you pay $200, $300, everybody goes home. So there is no opportunity for any of the parties to engage, to interact, and to ask the proper questions. So if you're a construction company, you have several trucks, and you never depreciated any of your assets, then yes, there is an opportunity for you to go back to amend and to significantly improve the results in your business tax return. So that's why we have item number 3, which is the assets worksheet. Shareholders information. So if there is any partners in the business, then we need to make sure that included. We need to make sure that they are actually filing also their tax returns. Now, this does not apply to every single business tax entity, but if we're talking about a small corporation, which is very common, if we're talking about an LLC, yes, it applies. Franchise tax. So it has happened to many that you go open a bank account and the bank says, I'm sorry, I cannot open a bank account for you. Why? Because your business entity shows in the state of Texas system that your entity is inactive or it has been forfeited. Normally, it happens because the franchise tax report has not been filed. We're talking about small corporations, limited liability companies, and corporations, right? If you are a DBA, I will talk a little bit about that, but that's a different story. So you got to make sure that you file your franchise tax return every year. It's always nice to have also the last year tax return. Why do you want to have the last year tax return? Well, it's nice to know the history so we can keep some level of consistency with the years ahead. And also, the time that you file taxes, it's kind of a good time to purge. When we refer about purging is get all the conversations related to taxes out of the way. So let's take a look at the IRS letters. If you have some money that you owe to the government, it's okay as long as you have an installment agreement, okay? And same thing at the state level. If you have any letters from Texas State Controller, from the Texas Workers Commission, from the Harris County Appraisal District, make sure that we bring those to the table. So by the time that we have that business tax meeting, we are reviewing these items. Top deductions. We talk about inventory, but wait a second, inventory is not a write-off. Yeah, that is correct. But what is a write-off? It's the change on inventory. So if we had a beginning inventory, $10, and at the end of the fiscal year, we had $8. So there is a change on inventory, a negative change, meaning that that is a write-off. Well, I've never included my inventory. Okay. Well, here is some opportunities to improve our performance on our business tax returns. The startup cost. Yeah, I mean, I put a lot of money when I started my business. I didn't know I could write it off. Meals and entertainment. Well, this year we have 100% allowance. It used to be 50%. This year it's now 100%. Travel. Well, yes, but be careful. We don't want to say, well, I went to Disney World, and since I was carrying my laptop and my phone, and I went to Orlando with my entire family, then yeah, that was a business trip. Therefore, I write off all my first class flight tickets and all my hotels and whatnot in my tax return. Well, you can't do that. It has to be some level of common sense, even though the common sense is subjective. And my recommendation is make sure that you understand your industry and make sure that you keep some patterns throughout the financial behavior of the business. Meaning, if I am a restaurant and I'm telling Alexis, I spent 80% on travel. And Alexis works for the IRS. Alexis is going to take a look at that file and he's going to say, how come you are a restaurant and you spend 80% of your revenue on travel? I want to know more. Well, that's called an examination. And that examination turns into an audit, right? So make sure that things are consistent and that they do make sense. Insurance, utilities, rent, office supplies, miles. Well, if we are a DBA, sole proprietorship, it's very common for people to write off the miles. Just keep in mind and make sure that you can support the miles, that you just don't put 50,000 miles and then you do a mathematical calculation and it's humanly impossible for someone to drive 50 miles in a year. Just giving you a quick example, but just make sure that it makes sense. Repairs and maintenance. Well, it depends. If you're trying to write off the repairs and maintenance of your vehicle, but you're writing off miles, you can't do that. Okay. Your intuition will tell you if whoever is filing your business tax returns knows what they're doing. Intuition will speak very loudly, so make sure that we file business tax returns with those who have knowledge in the field. Legal and professional fees, attorney's fees. Well, I'm doing an immigration case for my wife. Is it directly related to the business? Well, not really. Then we can't write it off. Interest. A lot of times we forget to write off the interest from credit cards. A lot of times we forget to write off the interest from credit cards. So this is the opportunity to do that. Taxes, sales tax, property tax, everything. And a universal rule is everything related to the directly related to the operation of the business. If it's not directly related, and a common example is I went to visit a client, I went with my 5-year-old son, and my 5-year-old son, well, he needed to stay entertained, so I bought an iPad for him. So I gave him the iPad, therefore I'm going to write it off. Yeah, that's not good. This is a worksheet. I don't know if you can see it, but just to give you a quick idea, a worksheet for 1120s, 1065, 1120s, and Schedule Cs to an extent. The Schedule C is the form that we file whenever we have a DBA. Okay, a DBA under a sole proprietorship. Right? So if we don't have any legal structure and we're paying a lot of money on taxes, yes, absolutely. You need to schedule a meeting with a business tax professional that can help you choose the right business structure so you can save significant amounts of money in taxes, right? If your revenues or your net profit, your net operating income is below 40, 50,000, then do not open an LLC, do not open an S Corp. In my opinion, it's just wait, it's okay. No need to rush. And Alexis, if we have any questions, meanwhile, let me know. If not, I will continue. Now, revenue. I mean, we need to include all the revenue, not only from clients, but if we receive interest, if we receive dividends, if we did receive rental income, all the income needs to be reported. If we own a land and they found gas or minerals, then we need to include the royalties, okay? Yes, for a business, we need to include that. Cost of goods sold, directly related to producing that service or that product. We need to make sure that we add those expenses. That's why bookkeeping is so important. Technology is relevant. Download a QuickBooks, download a Xero. In my opinion, just send it to a third party so they can handle that for you. And they can handle that for you. So that way you concentrate on running the business, you concentrate on pushing revenue, rather than working on paperwork. And in my opinion, it's a completely waste of time for any business owner, for any entrepreneur. My opinion. It doesn't mean it's the right opinion, just my opinion. Now, we have a question. Should I close my LLC since business is operating under 40K? Well, this is what I recommend. Reach out to your CPA, to your business tax attorney, to your business attorney, to your business tax professional before you do anything. This is a presentation, and as I mentioned at the beginning, is it is subject to cases and to variables. So I will need to know more what your plans are for the LLC before we go and shut it down. If you already opened it and we're aiming not to have revenues more than, or not revenues, but net profits more than 40,000, right? And we don't see any significant risk in terms of liabilities, in terms of legal liabilities, then potentially, okay? But what I mentioned, when I mentioned the 40,000 profits, I refer more to it's not going to create a significant tax impact if your profits are not above the 40K. So it's a conversation that I would recommend to dig into before you make any decisions, but it's a great question. Okay, so what can we write off? I mean, depreciation of assets, contributions to nonprofits. If you donated some funds to Baker Ripley, then yeah, absolutely. Baker Ripley, it's I believe a 501c3, but definitely nonprofit, and yes, you can write it off. Okay, accounting, advertising, bad debts. What else do we see here relevant? Insurance, interest, legal and professional fees, licenses, meals, dues and subscriptions, employee benefits programs, rent, repairs and maintenance, wages, taxes, not federal income tax, but payroll taxes, sales taxes, and whatnot. Travel expenses, utilities, auto and truck expense. Then you might say the following, well, I didn't see that item in the tax form. Can I still write it off? If it was directly related to your business operation, the answer is most likely yes. Okay. So that's where there is a section that says other expenses. Okay. Oops. What did I do here? Subcontractor versus employee. It's very common, and it's very common for business taxes. So this is, we have some blogs, we want to call them that way, where it says, what is a 1099? Who needs to file a 1099 NEC, non-employee compensation? What if I don't file a 1099 NEC? It happens very often in construction businesses. And what do I need to do in order to file a 1099? The deadline was January 31st. Can I still file it? Absolutely. The definition between a subcontractor and an employee, just briefly. If it's someone that follows direct orders, follows on a schedule, you provide the tools, and then the answer is an employee. If you have those individuals as subcontractors, you are in the potential liability of a lawsuit or an audit. Either way, it might cost you money down the road. So it's always good to check who's an actual 1099 and should I pay that individual as an employee. What if it happens also very often in construction business? What if they do not have a social security number? Well, there is an option to also obtain an IT number, and we also have information on what is an IT number. Why should I get an IT number? When can I apply for an IT number? Where do I apply for an IT number? And then this number, you can use it to file your 1099. So I'm about to be done. Are we good on time? Yeah, we're great on time. We have plenty of time. Okay, so then we go to the payroll. When we talk about payroll, then yeah, it is very important that if you are already an established business and you have also a legal business structure, that you compensate yourself for, let's say, for example, for S corps or C corps. If you have not been paying yourself, then you are failing to do what it's called the reasonable compensation. So the Internal Revenue Service says you must have what it's called a reasonable compensation. Failing to do so, it can lead into penalties, audits. Long story short, it can cost you money. So it's very important to make sure that you pay yourself. My recommendation is do a reasonable compensation. I mean, pay to start with $25,000, and then you keep increasing as years go by, and so that way you don't miss that portion. So whenever the IRS wants to know if you have payroll or not, well, it's very easy, because there is a section that says compensations, and if those two lines are empty, then it means that you're not complying with payroll and that you need to have payroll. Now, it's okay if you are overwhelmed. I already gave you a lot of information, and I just realized that I bombarded you with information in less than 25 minutes. So it's a lot. It's okay. You don't need to memorize all of this. You don't need to be making a lot of notes. Just know that the tool is out there. Just know that something exists for you as a leader, for you as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, to reach out to a business tax professional, ask these questions, and make sure that you are in compliance. That's all. Okay, so that is the purpose of this presentation today. Now, what else do we need to know when we talk about W-2s? Well, W-2, I mean, it's pretty much three main deductions from each paycheck. So if you pay someone $1,000, then you have to remove or deduct the federal income tax withheld. The purpose of that is to make sure that we have some savings as employees. So by the time that we file our personal income tax return, we're not gonna have a scary moment because we owe a lot of money on taxes, right? It doesn't necessarily save you from not paying taxes, or it doesn't necessarily guarantee you a refund, but at least it's some money that you've been saving up from every paycheck. So it's important to do that. The second one is the Social Security deduction. Social Security is 6.2%. So from $1,000 is $62.10. And then the third one is Medicare. Medicare is 1.45. My recommendation, again, and I'm not inducing anybody to hire our services, but of course, if you do, we will be very, very happy to have you as a client. But do not do payroll in-house. Don't do it. Don't do it. It's extremely simple. I agree. But then you miss sending a report, you miss sending a payment, and then we start having letters and issues, and it just becomes a headache, and then the penalties are very high. So payroll, make sure that you outsource it. Tax reminders. Tax reminders. See here. Okay, I think. So tax reminders, things that we should know is January 31st we gotta file by January 31st, we gotta file our W-2s for payroll. We gotta file our 1099s for subcontractors. And we also have to file our quarterly 941s ending on December 31st, 2021 for payroll, if you're doing in-house payroll. March 15, if you have a partnership on an S Corp, you need to file your business taxes by this date. Partnership 1065, S Corp 1120S. And if you're not ready to file, it's okay. Then we file the extension 7004. That's the name of the form. April 30th, we gotta file our quarterly, oh, I went too far. April 18, we need to file our personal tax return. And this is where I want to expand a little bit more. If you are a DBA, if you are a sole proprietorship, if you just started a business and you started to get a feeling of what it's like to be in business, if you are an employee somewhere else and you're running your side business, you don't need to open an LLC. You don't need to open an S Corp necessarily. If you have it, good, good. But if you don't, I'm not encouraging you to file it. Make sure that you do the proper due diligence and find out if you truly need to have a legal structure. So if you're a DBA and a sole proprietorship, then we will be filing in the same personal tax return our 1040, even if you're an LLC with only one member, yourself. Even if you're an LLC with two members, which is you and your spouse. If it's you and someone else, then it changes the form that you need to file. If it's you and your spouse, or only you with an LLC, or it's only a sole proprietorship, then you file the same 1040 form that you've been filing for several years, and you will be adding what it's called the Schedule C. When you file the Schedule C, then that's when we include our revenue. What do we include in the revenue? All your revenue for the business. Well, what if my revenue is some invoices, but clients have not paid me? I recommend you to file taxes under a cash basis format. Cash basis means you will only be reporting the income that you receive. You will only be reporting the income that you receive. If the clients have not paid you, you will not be reporting this income. For cost of goods sold, then again, we go back to inventory and we're on Schedule C. We're talking about sole proprietorships, DBAs. Then cost of goods sold, you're gonna be filing how much did it cost me to produce that product or service? You paid for vendors, suppliers, subcontractors. So you make sure that you add this in there. Operating expenses. And operating expenses is pretty much the same list that I mentioned earlier for Schedule C. Accounting expenses, advertising, bad debts, depreciation, insurance, interest expense, legal and professional fees, licenses, meals and entertainment, memberships, dues and subscriptions, rent, repairs and maintenance. Be careful that you don't claim miles and repairs and maintenance of the same vehicle at the same time. Salaries and wages, meaning payroll, supplies, office expenses, taxes, sales taxes, property taxes directly related to the business, not your house taxes, travel expenses, utilities. If you work from home, most of us work a lot of hours from home. And if you have a Schedule C, meaning you will be filing a Schedule C, meaning the DBA and the sole proprietorship that we're talking about right now. then yes, you do qualify to write off a portion of your house, the rent, the utility bills, and anything that was related to it. Of course, let's keep it to where we're not going too far away, where you're writing off all the rent. Now, you do not write it directly on this sheet. You got to fill out another form, and in that additional form is where a portion will be calculated. So yes, I am not saying that you can write off your entire rent or your entire mortgage. That is not what I'm saying. What I am saying is you write off a portion of it. Okay. And then all the other expenses that are related to the operation of the business. Now, going back to our calendar, then we file in our 1040 by April 18 of 2022. We also have to file our corporate tax return if we are a C Corp, meaning an 1120. If we are not ready for it, then we got to make sure that we file an extension. It is okay to file an extension. Also, for those taxpayers and those businesses who are already making a good amount of money, and at the end of the year, they have to pay 30, 40, 50, 100, 200, 300, 400, $1 million in taxes. Well, if you're paying that much money on taxes, be proud of yourself. It means that you're making money. It means that your profit is also a good profit. My recommendation is also, depending on the stage that we are in the business, we're giving a lot of business tax tips today. Absolutely. If I made $500,000 and I'm only investing 30 minutes of my year to file taxes with a business tax professional, and I'm paying tons of money on taxes. The reason why you're paying a lot of money on taxes is because you're not investing on the right professionals. Meaning that, yes, if you make $500,000 a year, I will definitely encourage you to upgrade your accounting services so you can get more information on what's happening in your business. So you can have more data for you to make decisions. And in addition to it, you could potentially hire a tax planning firm. Can JPG do that? Up to an extent. So yes, we are medical doctors, but it doesn't mean that we can do a brain surgery. Well, but JPG, you're the doctor. Yes, but we need to understand also which professional I need, when do I need the professional, and when it's time to pull the trigger and increase my budget on professional services so I can push my business even further. Financial consulting, not financial products, but I understand the accounting. I know what happened in the past. I see another question here. I know what's happening in my business. I understand the accounting, meaning the past, the rear view mirror. Now, what do I do with it? Well, absolutely, you gotta have an outsourced CFO. You must have an outsourced CFO, and you need to go and have more conversations throughout the year with professionals that can help you build a roadmap for the future. That's going to help us to save money on taxes. So if we're investing 1 hour a year and our business is already to a certain level, then yeah, absolutely, you're throwing money out the window every single day. What about grants? How do we put these on tax return, particularly using Schedule C? Great question. Some grants, and the majority of them, they're not income. So you do not have to add them as income. The best example is the EIDL loans. I'm sure everybody is related to the Small Business Administration and the SBA was in charge of administrating the COVID small business funds, EIDL and PPP. So the PPP said it is a loan, but it has the capacity to be forgiven. And if it's forgiven, it goes into the form of a grant. So that is the best example, meaning that the PPP grant, you do not include it as your income. You do not include that as your income. Okay, so I hope I answered your question, but again, one question, it comes back with another 2 questions from our end to better understand each one of the cases. So yes, investing in the right professionals is just at the beginning, my recommendation, and maybe we're gonna build a roadmap on this item because this item is significant to save money on taxes, significant. We're investing only 1 hour a year and we pretend to have a very organized business from a tax perspective. It's impossible. It's the same way of me calling Alexis and saying, Alexis, the business plan that you helped me build, it failed, it's wrong, and it's your fault. Well, because it's always easier to blame someone else. And we all do that, right? And then Alexis will say, well, Gustavo, let me ask you a question. Sure, Alexis. How many times did you reach out to me throughout the year? Well, I mean, only once. How many hours did we invest in the business planning? Well, I mean, I invest 30 minutes because I was also on my phone and I was not really paying attention to you. So, because you're the expert, so you know what you're doing, you do it, and you give me the business plan. Okay. So we're pretending that only with 30 minutes of our time invested into our business, at the end of the day, we're the only ones who are gonna suffer or win out of this. Then we're expecting to have good results. Now, we understand that accounting professionals can be very expensive. We understand that tax planning can be $30,000, $40,000 a year. It can be very, very expensive, or $100,000 or $200,000 or $300,000 a year. So I'm not saying if you just started your business, invest $30,000 in tax planning. Absolutely not. We got to understand where we are, what stage of our business we are in, and then from there, we increase the budget as the business is increasing. I don't have money for an attorney. I cannot afford an attorney. Well, do not hire an attorney, right? And just run your business as best as you can. And it's okay. We all started that way. But if you're running a $20 million project and you're pretending to save money on taxes, you're pretending to have control of your finances, but you have no business plan, you have no accounting, or you have a very, very poor accounting product, and then you don't have any financial strategy product, and then you also don't do any type of tax planning, then absolutely you will not understand your numbers, meaning that you will most likely fail on the return on that $20 million project. And also it means that if you get into lawsuits and you could have prevented them, but you didn't, all of it, everything that I just mentioned is just a pure product of your negligence as an entrepreneur. So you do need to identify these professionals in your ecosystem, and you need to know when to bring Alexis, when to bring JPG, when to bring Baker Ripley. Well, Baker Ripley, bring it from day one. You know, it's a product and a service built by the community for the community. So use it. But when it's paid professionals, understand who's out there and when do I need to bring them to my team. Now, let's see, we have here the question. What about those businesses that outsource things like marketing, management, social media management outside of the country? How do you report this expense? I don't think anybody's doing outsourcing today. Is anybody doing outsourcing? Everyone. So actually, if you're not outsourcing some of the segments of your business, you're late in the game. If you today do not understand that the pandemic changed your game, you're behind the game. You need, it's okay, and it's okay. It's okay. Ria says, go back, understand, and get back on your game. So BPO, business processes outsourcing. So someone decided to outsource marketing management because it's, you know, just once a week. All you gotta do is post some stuff and you just lead the person. So why should I pay a marketing agency $2,000 a month if I can just hire somebody from Honduras, from India, from London? Well, London is quite expensive, but from Singapore, that's also a horrible expense. Anyways, you get my point. From another country, right? To where labor force is less expensive, and do it for $100 a month. Bingo. So you're producing $100,000 in revenue. We have a cost of $20,000, and then we have operating expenses of $60,000. So my profit is $20,000. But then someone is saying, hey, you can actually outsource it, but because it is okay to work from home and it's okay to work from anywhere around the world. Then I can convert that business. I can acquire that business, buy that business today, because that person didn't wake up rapidly to adapt to the pandemic and understand that you have resources out there. So I can turn that business into producing $20,000 to produce $60,000. Like this. Now, to answer the question, I just wanted to take the opportunity to embrace and to empower those who were thinking about outsourcing. Absolutely. It's good for the economy. It's good for all the other countries. It's good for the world. It's good for the business. It's good for everyone. Now, yes, you can write it off, unless if you're sending just Western Union. So the way the tax world works is that the best example is thinking as a hot potato, right? So I have a hot potato, meaning this is $20,000. If I hold the hot potato, it means that I will be paying taxes on this $20,000. But I say, no, I did not kept those $20,000. I paid these to a marketing agency in South America. Then I take the hot potato and I throw it to that marketing agency in South America. If it's an actual company, then yes, you're okay writing it off. If it's an individual, then you might have some issues with that in the event of an audit. Because how can you prove that you're not sending that money to your family members back home and you're writing it off? Now, there is companies that are revolutionizing the pandemic, and one of them is Deal, DEEL.com. So they basically are providing global payroll solutions, meaning that yes, today you can hire human talent from anywhere around the world legally. You can hire anywhere from around the world legally, and you can actually onboard these employees or subcontractors within 5 minutes. It's very, very, very easy. My only recommendations to close this question is do not write off or ask your business tax professional if you're just sending Western Union payments or MoneyGram and whatnot. Okay. All right. Please let me know if I answered the question, and it was a great example because it's something that it's happening today, and it might help a lot. On April 30th, we got to file our quarterly our quarterly payroll tax return. So we got to make sure that we file it by that date. May 15th, we got to file our franchise tax report. So if you're an LLC, you're an S Corp, you're a C Corp, you're a PLLC, make sure that you're filing this report. Otherwise, the state of Texas is going to inactive or forfeit your entity. July 31st, we go back to payroll tax return. So remember, I say, hey, payroll, just give it to someone else. It's $60, $70 a month. Why do you have to deal with this headache? Yes, You don't want to be missing filing reports and deadlines and whatnot. September 15, if you filed an extension on April 15, you have a 6-month automatic extension that requires you to file returns by September 15 of 2022. This applies for partnerships and S corporations, small corporations. You do not have another opportunity. If you did not file by September 15 after filing your extension, then you will be penalized. And penalties can be a few thousands of dollars. Okay. If you receive a letter with a penalty, we might know something and we might be able to help you. Now we have October 17. In October 17, that's when we're going to file corporate C Corp tax returns and personal tax returns with extensions. Try not to do an extension unless if you have a reason to do so, because it's just going to push you behind in all your plans. So just get the tax returns out of the way and move forward. And then October 31st is then when you have to file another payroll tax return. So we have January 31st, we have April 30th, we have July 30th, and we have October 31st. So it's 4 times throughout the year. Okay. So this is a good calendar. If you send us an inquiry, an email, we will be more than happy to share these documents with you. Actually, we should upload this to our website. So I'm going to have someone to upload these documents. It's very friendly and extremely useful. So we have a few minutes left. Anybody has any questions? Yeah, I'm not afraid to say it. We're not afraid to say it. We do love our clients. Our clients keep us alive, and our clients are helping us throughout the last years to continue building a stronger community, a community of entrepreneurs that we help on a daily basis to build wealth in America. That's what we do at JPG. That's what we love doing. And it's helping you build that roadmap, the roadmap of your business. So we have a plan. We know where to go from point A to point B, what stages, what stops we have in between in order for us to build wealth in America. So thank you, Alexis. Thank you, Entrepreneur Connection. If we don't have any questions, then we can also take a quick break before our 1 p.m. presentation in Espanol.
Yes, anyone else have a question? Talk now, because we have the expert here, so let's hear what you have to say, and then we will jump on the next one, the next workshop for Spanish speakers. Someone else? Okay, Lorena, say thank you.
We also have our website, and we have our Instagram account. We also have the same, I think the same is for LinkedIn and Facebook. If you have any questions, you can reach out to us.
Okay. Well, if it's nothing else right now, we are going to stop here. Thanks so much, Gustavo, for helping us to do this. We're going to do now the webinar in Spanish. So whoever wants to jump to the Spanish one will be more than welcome. And Gustavo, thanks so much again. And then I will see you at the one on the other workshop.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, Morayo.
Bye, Alexis.
Gustavo, are you there? Oh.
Yes. We should. Are we gonna stay on the same one? Well, we'll
See you in the other one. Then I will talk to you. Okay.
Okay.